everybody. This is another Brent Reacts video. Hope you guys enjoy the content that we've been putting out. There's actually more to come when it comes to content and different things that I'm actually working on. I'll tell you guys about that when the time comes. So today we're actually reviewing I recently came across this channel, and it's exactly what it sounds like, guys. This particular channel is called Ghostcraft Coven, and it's a group of witches, basically. Now, I don't know if all of them that are featured on the channel are in fact witches, but it seems to me that the main people in this channel are in fact witches. And so what we're actually going to be reviewing is, well, it's essentially it's even hard for me to put into words, because this is just, I'm not gonna be negative about it, but this is, I'll point some stuff out as time goes on, related to the video. But first, I wanted to give context. So again, this channel that we're going to be reviewing today is Ghostcraft Coven. But I wanted to give context to everything that's happening in this video. It's not a too long of a video. However, guys, be patient, because I'm going to try to cover a lot of ground in this as quickly as I can. But before we go into the seance, I kind of want to give you guys context. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch my screen, and we are going to go into Logos. That's essentially what I have used for quite a few years, as far as alright, so here's the page that we're looking at, and I want to start with this first. So as you guys can see, this particular book is called The Best Yet to Come by Charles Cadwell Ryrie. I'm not super familiar with him, but he does a really, really good summary, I would say, of the modern context of witchcraft and the occults and New Age. So the first section, we're in chapter 9 of his book. And this particular chapter is apparently it's called The Devil Makes Them Do It. So I'm just going to go ahead and read this. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. But I'm going to read the first couple of different ideas that he kind of presents here. The devil is big business today. A few years ago, it was estimated that 10,000 full-time and 175,000 part-time astrologers were practicing in America. Astrology boom in France rakes in about $650 million a year and supports 500,000 astrologers. Spiritualism in Brazil have been called to the country's fastest growing cult, and as many as 6,000 witches meet regularly in Britain. Witchcraft generates a multi-million-dollar industry in America, and it publishes its own journal called Occult Trade Review. It's half dozen publishing houses, and turns out books like The Stock Market and Witchcraft and Sexual Power through Witchcraft. Add to this all the tarot cards, astrology packets, Ouija boards, which that's primarily what we're going over today, is Ouija boards, and occult bumper stickers that are sold every day. And the totals are staggering. The devil is big business, and he is serious business. So those numbers, guys, it's pretty shocking to me. It probably shouldn't be, given the fact that, I kind of came out of this whole movement. But those are shocking numbers for any person. And and I'm also going to read this next section here to give just a little bit more before we move on to the next point here, before we get into the actual video itself. Satan's Little Helpers. This is the next segment, and you guys can definitely find this book. It seems to be a helpful source, understanding a good majority of the modern context, I would say, when it comes to witchcraft and how we're to look at this. And again, like this isn't me like attacking any particular person who doesn't hold a Christian worldview. This is just me objectively looking at this and giving you guys as much context as possible. So here we go. Here's the next section. The idea of a personal devil, an active demon, shocks our 20th century sensibilities. But why? How does not having that feeling that there is a sinister spirit abroad in the world? And besides, has anyone penned an authoritative book entitled A Guide to All Creatures in the Universe? Could anyone? God can, and has, in the Bible. And since the Bible has proved itself true on other subjects, we ought to listen to what it says about devil and his demons. Satan does not fight alone. Demons are cohorts in the rebellion. Both Satan and the demons belong to a category of creatures we know as angels. Only they are rebellious angels. They plotted to usurp the dominion. Sorry guys, I'm having a hard time today with reading apparently. Let's see here. That rightfully belongs to God and man. So when Jesus begins to quell their rebellion by opening up the seals on the scroll that is his deed to rule the world, we know expect the devil and his army of demons to fight with all of their might. During the coming days of the Great Tribulation, they will muster all the resources against world leaders, against nations, and finally against Jesus Christ himself. Okay, so I think that's a pretty good overview of looking at this stuff from a modern context. I want to read one more and then I'm going to share some verses before we go into the actual video. Because I think it's important for you guys to understand this. Regardless if I've said it, it's still good to hear. So this next, here we go. So this essentially, I'm probably only going to read a little bit of it just because there's a lot of information here. And this particular book is called Synonyms of the Old Testament. This book is authored by Robert Baker Girdstone. I'm trying to show it on the screen there. I don't know if you guys can see it that well. Oh, you can't. All right, never mind. So all we're going to basically be going over is the first section of this, because this is kind of looking at witchcraft, divination, and soothsaying all together into one ideal, but it does continue on to essentially break those apart, just because of time, and I think this is a good enough context. I'm probably only going to read this first section, just to give you guys, again, a little bit more clarity as to why I'm saying what I'm saying. Okay, witchcraft, divination, and soothsaying. Superstition is the natural complement to materialism. The mind of man, having once become warped in religious matters, does not cling with erring sagacity to the truth that there is God, or there is a God. Apologies. Guys, I'm having a really hard time reading today. I apologize for that. I think my brain's just going in like 1,000 miles in like 20 different ways. And that was okay to laugh at, by the way. Let's see here. Where was I? Okay. Do not cling with uttering sagacity to the truth that there is a God, but it goes aside into bypass, sometimes resting in which is material, and seeking to exclude the idea of spiritual existences altogether from the mind, other times oscillating in the direction of what is now called spiritualism, a system known in the early days by a ruder name of witchcraft. Few things are more fascinating than the thought that the secrets of the hidden world or of the unknown future may be unfolded through the dealings with the departed. or that one person may, by going through certain mysterious processes, exercise a powerful influence over the will or destiny of another. Incantations, drugs, vapors, and the conjunction of the stars, the voice of flight of birds, the passage of the clouds, the mesmerism, animal magnetism, electrobiology, these are all these and such like have been used in various ages and countries to take place in the place of religion. So I think that's probably good enough for us to kind of give some context with the scripture that we're also going to look at here. So basically what this is essentially saying is that it's based in witchcraft as a whole, right? It is based in a ideal within apologetics and within theology as metaphysics. Now, metaphysics can be described in several different ways, but the context that I'm using it here is the whole thing with the idea of spiritualism, which, might I add, actually is not as old as what you would think. It actually was about, I think it started in the early 1800s, late 1700s, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly. And on our podcast, the Out of Darkness podcast, we're eventually going to do a whole entire show dedicated to spiritualism to try to explain it. We do have a lot going on with that as well, so guys, just be patient with us on this because, both Lydia and myself kind of fly by the seat of our pants most of the time. But luckily, we have a lot of good people that are helping us along the way, and it's been a great journey so far. And it's led into a lot of different things for me, but also for Lydia as well. So really, what this is basically saying is that witchcraft basically deals in the metaphysics. And that can mean basically an emotional response. And primarily that's what we're referring to when we say metaphysic. It is a emotional response to something within that idea. Okay, the idea in this case is witchcraft or divination or soothsaying. It's all pretty much the same thing, but it's all basically kind of relevant when you're looking at somebody that is doing a seance and using a Ouija board to do so. And something interesting Lydia had pointed out when she was helping me do a little bit of research is that Ouija boards really haven't been around that long, to be completely honest. And there was a big spike in history where obviously wars happen and people are trying to justify it. And so essentially it kind of got big, I would say, from around the 20s. And I think just recently they stopped making them. I haven't seen them in a store for quite some time. That doesn't mean that they're not there, though. But originally, the planchette was probably made from porcelain or some aspect of that, and the board was generally wood early on. I think you're going to see in this video, when we get to that point, you're going to see probably like an older one. I'm not sure the age. I'm not a historian when it comes to that stuff. Believe it or not, the main person of this channel actually kind of is a historian related to Ouija boards, which why you would want to know that, I don't really understand exactly, but so let's get into the scriptures that we're going to reference here. Let me try to bring this over a little bit so you guys can see it a little bit better. Okay, and there we go. So the first one, I have mentioned this in the past, in I think the last reaction video, if I'm not mistaken, I probably mentioned this, but I want to give more context, okay? And so the first one that we're going to look at is Deuteronomy 18 from verses 9 to 14. Now, this is extremely important to understand because I'm going to further explain this from a modern context, because this isn't really giving in modern contexts, I believe it's kind of harder for us to understand today, especially the second, verse 10, but I will try to, within the boundaries of YouTube, try to explain that. Alright, so Deuteronomy 18, starting in verse 9. When you enter the land which Yahweh your God gives you, you shall not learn to imitate the abominations of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone who makes his son or his daughter pass through the fire, one who uses divination, one who practices soothsaying, or one who interprets omens, or a sorcerer. This is exactly what it sounds. One of the things that was done back then, especially to certain gods that are fertility gods, they would actually offer the firstborn child generally to that god. I'm going to say it that way. I think that's pretty safe. But you always can find, good sound doctrinal people that can explain that farther. I'm just trying to stay within the boundaries of Facebook here. Or not Facebook, I'm sorry. Just social media in general. I apologize for that. I don't know why I said Facebook. I meant YouTube. So let's continue. Or one who is an enchanter or a medium or a spiritist or one who inquires of the dead. This is what a seance is. It's an inquiry of the dead. Now we're going to go into another set of verses that's going to farther look at that point just here in just a second. But let's finish this, and then we'll build a theological bridge here before we start this video. Again, guys, there's a lot here, so just be patient with me as I try to break this down a little bit. For whoever, starting in verse 12, for whoever does these things is an abomination to Yahweh. And because of these abominations, Yahweh your God will dispossess them from before you. That is exactly how it sounds, by the way. Again, trying to stay within the boundaries that I'm given here. So, you shall be blameless before Yahweh your God, for those nations you shall dispossess. Listen to those who practice soothsaying, and to diviners. But as for you, Yahweh your God has not allowed you to do so. So what does this mean in a modern context? So one of the ideals here is the word abomination, as I've said before, is a word that literally means God hates it, one, and there is no salvation whatsoever. So the last video, for example, that I reviewed was a couple that started out, and you guys know that I don't like any of these experiments, but they started out with the Estes method, and he goes into this Estes method. Something happens to this guy. You guys can obviously look more on that particular video, but essentially the very next line he says after doing that is, "We're children of God. You can't do what you're doing. You can't." Okay, at that point, if you are doing something that God has already seen as an abomination, there's no way, okay, that you can play the Jesus card at that point. Whether you're a believer or not, that's what this is saying. So unless you repent from the abominations that God mentions here, and is honestly mentioned throughout Scripture, there is no saving you. Okay? What's going to happen is that you're going to be presented before Jesus, the one true God, and you're going to be like, "Well, Jesus, I worshipped you. I went to church." And in this particular situation, he's going to say, "Well, I never knew you because you never repented from, the abominations that you practiced." So just take that into consideration as we go on. Now, the second set of verses that we're going to do is from 1 Samuel chapter 28. Now, we're going to start in verse 5, but this is the time frame to where Saul seeks out a medium or witch of Endor, okay? And the context is basically God has left Saul. He left him to his own sin. And now Saul is terrified because he has the Philistines or the Philistines breathing down his neck, threatening him. And he doesn't have the counsel that he has anymore with both God and with the prophet Samuel. So, with that being said, at this point Samuel has passed, and it says this in the text. But let's read this quickly and try to break it down, and then I'll have two more, and that's it as far as this is concerned. And then we'll get into the video. I appreciate you guys' patience, because I am trying to give you all the context first, and then we'll kind of break down stuff as it happens, okay? So starting in verse 5 of 1 Samuel 28. Saul saw the camp of the Philistines and was afraid. His heart trembled greatly. So Saul asked Yahweh, but Yahweh did not answer him. As we stated before, he committed a great sin against God, and the Spirit of God left him completely. Let's see. So Saul asked Yahweh, but Yahweh did not answer him either by dreams or by Urim or by the prophets. Now, this is essentially like a Urim is a religious object. I'm not entirely sure as to what that means, but it's a object that they would use to essentially try to get clarity from the Lord. So going into verse 7, so Saul said to his servants, "Seek for me a woman who is a medium, aka witch, that I may go to her and inquire of her." And his servant said to him, "Well, behold, there is a woman who is a medium at Endor." And Saul disguised himself and put on other clothes, and he went. He and 2 men went with him, and they came to the woman by night, and he said, "Divide for me, please, and bring up for me whom I shall say to you." But the woman said to him, "Behold, you know what Saul has done, how he has cut off those who are mediums and spiritists from the land," meaning God has essentially killed off a good majority of the people that are practicing witchcraft at the time, okay? And so he disguised himself so he can basically trick this medium into doing his bidding for him in this moment. So let's continue here. But the woman said to him, "Behold, you know what Saul has done, how he has cut off those who are medium spiritualists from the land. Why are you then landing a snare for my life to bring about my death?" Now here's a great sin, guys, in verse 10. This is probably one of the biggest sins that you can commit outside of the obvious. And this is the conversation, right, that's going on here. So let's look at verse 10, and then I'll briefly break it down real quick. And then Saul swore to her by Yahweh, saying, "As Yahweh lives, no punishment shall come upon you for this thing." Now here's the problem. What did we just say in Deuteronomy? That it was an abomination, right? So Saul is trying to speak on behalf of Yahweh, saying that no harm's going to come to her, but here's the problem. She's performing what God sees it as an abomination here, okay? So keep that in mind. Saul is, basically saying, "Oh, well, don't worry about God. He and I are good." No, the Holy Spirit left him, so they aren't good, okay? So that's a grave mistake that many people make, especially within, as you guys know, within the paranormal and occultic and New Age world. They try to speak on behalf of God. I'm sorry, but that's a great sin. So that's kind of what's going on here. And then let's start back up in verse 11. We'll just try to finish it out here, and then we'll quickly move on to the other points that I would like to make before we dive into this video. So then the woman said, "Whom shall I bring up for you?" And he said, "Bring up Samuel for me." And the woman saw Samuel and cried with a loud voice. And the woman spoke to Saul, saying, "Why have you deceived me, for you are Saul?" And the king said to her, "Do not be afraid, but what did you see?" And the woman said to Saul, "I see a divine being coming from out of the earth." And he said to her, "What is his form?" And she said, "An old man is coming up, and he is wrapped with a robe." And Saul knew that it was Samuel, and he bowed with his face to the ground and prostrated himself. And Samuel said to Saul, "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" And Saul answered, "I'm greatly distressed, for the Philistines are waging war against me, and God has turned away from me and no longer answers me, either by the hand of the prophets or by dreams. Therefore I have called you, that you make known to me what I should do. Okay. In this event that's taking place here, this is the first time that we see how God actually allowed this to happen in this moment. And I want to be clear with something here. The witch was terrified. The medium was terrified. Because more than likely, this is the first time it's actually ever physically happened to her. And I believe that God allowed this context to happen to better understand what happens next. So there's a common misconception, I would say, that people don't realize that spirits are intelligent, okay? What we're about to hear is not only is it an intelligent response, it is a prophecy of Saul, okay? So the question is, can spirits, not only are they intelligent, but they can know aspects of the future. And so I think it's a mistake to go into any investigation or any aspect of doing this with the thought that you're basically talking to something that's not intelligent. That's just downright foolish. And let's dive into these last couple of verses so you guys can understand why I'm making this claim. And Samuel said, "Why then do you ask me, since Yahweh has turned away from you and has become your adversary? So Yahweh has done accordingly as he spoke by my hand, for Yahweh has torn the kingdom out of your hand and given it to your neighbor David. As you did not listen to the voice of Yahweh and did not execute his burning anger on Amalek. So Yahweh has done this thing to you this day. Moreover, Yahweh has also given over Israel along with you unto the hands of Philistines. Therefore tomorrow you and your sons will be with me. Indeed, Yahweh will go over the camp of Israel into the hands of the Philistines." Okay, there's obviously more here that we could talk about, but I think that covers most of what I'm trying to get at here as far as this particular verse. And the last two guys are short, okay? I promise. So this is proving the fact that, you know, spirits are intelligent and they can interact with the physical world. And one thing to keep in mind here, Samuel says that you're going to be with me. He's talking about afterlife. He's not talking necessarily about heaven here, because if this was the case, we would go into Hebrews in the New Testament and we would see Saul's name listed there, but we don't see it. And it's because of the great sins that he had committed against Yahweh. That's the truth, guys. All right, so let's go into two more little sections and then we'll be done. All right, so the next one I want to bring to our attention is Matthew chapter 24. And I'm basically just going to read 2 verses ahead and 2 verses after, okay, what Jesus is actually saying here. Because it's important to understand what's going on as far as what the occultic, the prophets within the occultic world, the New Age world, do, okay? This is a definition by Christ himself as to what people in these movements will do, all right? So, for context, I think I'm going to start at verse 21, and I'll just go ahead and read it until the end of it. But verse 24 is what we're really focusing on here. Okay, so let's see here. "For then they will be a great tribulation, such has not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, nor ever will. And unless those days have been cut short, no life will have been saved. For the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short." The elect referring to believers. Okay, that's what this is saying. "Then if anyone says to you, behold, there is a Christ, or there he is, do not believe him." So we're talking about false prophets, false teachers, people that are wolves in sheep's clothing. Okay, that's primarily what we're talking about here. But verse 24 gives a lot of context. Okay, "For the false Christ and false prophets will arise and will show you great signs and wonders, as to deceive, if possible, even the elect." So this is saying that Christians are also not safe of being deceived. Okay, so it's smoke and mirrors, in other words. And unfortunately, there is a lot of churches that buy into a lot of these occultic and New Age practices and don't even realize that that's what they are. That's a whole different separate video. That's a whole different separate idea. And, you know, that part's really, really dangerous when you think about that. Behold, I have told you in advance, therefore, if they say to you, behold, he is in the wilderness, do not go out, or behold, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe them. For just as lightning comes from the east and appears even to the west, so will be coming of the Son of Man be. Wherever the corpse is, the vultures will gather. So what Jesus is talking about here, this is right before he is crucified. And what he's truly saying here is he's like, look, there's going to be people that are going to, cry wolf. And there are going to be people that are going to try to convince people, whether it be from false narration or ideals or doctrines, it's going to happen. And I think we're closer to that age than what we ever have before in history, which is part of the reason why I'm kind of starting with this. The last one, and this is, again, just for context, okay? We're looking at Acts 16. Now, what's unique about Acts 16 in this particular spot, we're talking about Paul and Silas being imprisoned. Now, what happens here, I'm going to try to give context quickly, and then we'll jump into the video. So basically, we're at this point in a Roman territory. Now, it may actually tell you before, it's Philippi, apparently. So, Caesarea Philippi area, and what happens in this is actually quite interesting, because one of the things that no one ever wants to say is that people make money, as we already talked about, making false claims and false accusations and trying to lead people astray. There's big business. It's a big, expensive market. When I mean expensive, I mean like we're into the billions of dollars, okay, that are being used today to support false ideals. So what Paul and Silas do in this particular situation is they basically cast out a demon out of a girl. And her masters were profiting off of her, making all of these different claims. So let's just jump into it real quick. And yeah, this is just so interesting to me. So Paul and Silas in prison. So Acts 16, starting in verse 16. Now it happened as we were going to the place of prayer, a servant girl having a spirit of divination met us, who was bringing her masters much profit by fortune telling. Following after Paul and us, she kept crying out, saying, these men are slaves of the God Most High, who are proclaiming to you the way of salvation. So this demon that is inside of this girl is literally explaining the gospel here. That yes, they are slaves of the Most High. They are servants of the Most High. All of us that are believers are in fact servants or slaves of the Most High. Okay? That should be very clear to most of us, I would say. But what's even more interesting is what happens after this. As she continued doing this for many days, but being greatly annoyed, Paul turned to her and said to the spirit, I command you in the name of Jesus Christ to leave her. And it left that very moment. Okay, let's keep in mind, Paul was an apostle. So he had apostolic gifts given directly to him by Christ for the advancement of the kingdom. So in other words, do I think that we are called as individuals to cast out demons? No, I don't. It is the church's responsibility to do that as a whole, yes, but no individual person, whether you're a true believer in Christ or not, has that type of authority outside of an apostle that was alive during the life, death, and resurrection of Christ. Okay? So that's probably going to stir the pot a little bit, but I'm not really doing this to debate anybody. I'm doing this to explain exactly what's going on here, what we're about to see here in the next couple of minutes. But then her masters saw that their hope of profit had left. They seized Paul and Silas and dragged them into the marketplace before the authorities. And when they had brought them to the chief magistrates, they said, "These men are throwing our city into confusion by being Jews, and are proclaiming customs that are not lawful for us to accept or to observe, being Romans." So they got imprisoned, guys, okay? They got imprisoned simply because they were actually preaching the gospel and asked a demon to leave a girl. But why they were imprisoned is that in Caesarea Philippi, again, that was big business. You're taking money out of these masters' pockets by converting this girl into being a true believer. And, you know, I don't think that would happen today, you know, as far as, you know, somebody preaching the gospel, and because of preaching the gospel, you know, a demon leaves someone. This context is still being used today, but I don't think it would be done in the same manner as far as, you know, that person that casted out the spirit out of this girl would be in prison. But it was a very different time in history, okay? Something that we have to understand. So that's all the context that I'm giving as far as my end of it, because I just wanted to point all that stuff out and be as clear as possible. I know, guys, this is a little bit longer than what you're probably used to from me when it comes to context, but all of this is extremely, extremely important, guys, because like without that context, you're not really going to understand the next part of this. So let's go ahead and get into actually watching the video now, and I'm going to try to keep as much to this as possible, as far as like me not trying to hang on one second, guys. There's something that's gone. There we go. Okay, good. I had a weird setting on that was making my voice echo, and it was driving me nuts. All right, so let's go into this, and let me change my screen here. So this is the video that we're going to be reviewing. Now, I'm going to try to keep it to a minimum because I've given you all the context straight away. I'm going to try to keep this as minimalistic as possible of me trying to do any type of commentary until we get chunks. I want to get chunks of this done before I say anything, okay? Like I know that's a little bit different than what I normally do, but it's one of those things to where we'd already have the context straight away, so it's going to be apparent when stuff happens, which basically nothing happens, but that's not the point. So let's just dive into this, guys, and we'll make commentary where we feel like it's necessary.
I was pretty fed up dealing with this negative energy, and I really wanted to see if we can connect to my great-grandma. And the perfect person to bring with me on this challenge is my mother. We gathered some of her belongings, which is a tablecloth that she crocheted. I'm wearing a ring that was passed down to me from her. We have a picture of her and her husband, and she always liked to have her morning coffee and butterscotch candy. You might know what a Ouija board is. Do you think your grandma had one of these?
Maybe when she was a kid. No, I don't really know what to do, to be honest.
So you're just going to put your fingers on here. Let's just do one hand, the hand you write with. And just hover really lightly. Okay. So we're going to circle it around. And we're going to think about your grandma, Connie. Connie, we are inviting you to come and communicate with us. I have never met you in person, but I have your picture on my wall, a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a teenager. Did she die when you were a teenager?
I was 15.
Oh, so maybe you haven't talked to Michelle since she was a teenager?
That's true.
So we're inviting you. It looks like you figured out how to use that because that's very relevant. You can push our hands on the planchette to let us know yes and no questions. I just want to verify that this is Connie we are talking to. Thank you, Connie.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Connie. Have you been watching over us? Are you able to see your family from the afterlife? We give you our energy and we allow you to move this planchette, move us.
He will trick you.
So that's what I'm worried about. Is this Connie or is this someone pretending to be Connie? We need to ask some questions.
All right, so we're 2 minutes in, and a few things are going on here. One is that notice how they move it in a circular pattern, right? That is literally called the power of suggestion. And so she's trying to say that both of them are basically saying, I'm not doing it, okay? But the problem is that this is exactly how the power of suggestion works. You're trying to suggest a thought to anybody who's involved in this particular thing, and basically they're trying to imagine this Connie woman in their head, which the younger one, if you didn't know, that's the witch. Obviously, the other one is her mother. So, yeah, that's what's going on here. This is what's called the power of suggestion. I just wanted to point that out real quick, and let's get back to playing this.
That only you would know.
Okay.
More than just like, oh, their light went off. Like,
Okay.
what's something?
Like, how many children did she have?
Okay. How many children did you have, Connie, to prove to us that we're not being tricked right now? Turned off. When we started moving that little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Move down to the number. You can also tell us on this device, but it looks like you're working it.
Are you doing it?
I don't even know how many kids she had.
Are you moving that?
No. Focus. Okay, how many children did you have, Connie?
Dancing.
Dancing. I danced when I was young.
The light turned on. 6? Hold on. Yeah.
Mm-mm.
It turned off again. Would you know about any miscarriages?
I don't.
I remember Grandma saying she did have a miscarriage.
Okay, well, maybe we can verify that later.
How many kids did she have?
So, 5.
5. So if there was a miscarriage, then
Maybe, yeah. I gotta hover. Can we take a break first?
yeah, we can take a break. Let's put. Okay, I'm gonna put this candle on yes. So if you turn it on or off, that is a designated yes.
They blamed me.
Who blamed you? Do you appreciate your coffee? So yes. Okay, so I have this REM pod on the board. I want to know if you can touch that. Are you able to get?
All right, just quickly here. So you can see that they're starting to build a narrative here, and it's going to be really sad as it goes on because everything that they're doing is a stretch. Now, when it comes to the devices, okay, like how these things work is they're basically electromagnetic phenomena. That's what they're trying to basically suggest as what's happening here. Here's the problem. You have 3 devices plus 2 cameras that we know of that are in the room within close proximity. So it is very, very possible that these devices are essentially feeding each other to go off, okay? And that's kind of the issue at this point. Like, I can't sit here and tell you guys to believe this when Lydia and myself in Cleveland have proved this time and time and again that these things are just extremely inconsistent. And if you have anything that's giving a frequency, whether it's movement or whether it's radio frequency, they're going to go off. Okay, so I don't see any of what they're doing right here as far as the devices are concerned. I don't see that as any proof or evidence. Okay, and it's because they're so close proximity. You guys know that the only way to be accurate with this is to have an isolated thing. So in other words, like, have this stuff separated and have them as isolated as possible away from each other. That's the best way to do this particular type of device. And it's just blatantly wrong, you know, like they're trying to say that this is yes and no and all that, but she's trying to also build a narrative, and it just gets worse as time goes on. So just wanted to throw that in there just for a second. That way you guys kind of understand, you know, like what's actually happening here, because you can't have those devices that close to each other along with two cameras. It will cause them to go off, and any aspect of vibration. So another thing that they're doing is you see that they're leaning on the table. Now, they're not doing the whole moving table thing. I forget what that's called. But the vibrations from them speaking and moving their arms can, in fact, go through the cable. Go through the table and cause these devices to go off. So, again, just pointing that out. Let's get back to it.
Close.
Illegal.
Illegal. Any illegal activities you got blamed for? No, I don't think so. The only thing like illegal that comes to my mind is like what once on the 4th of July, my uncle had illegal fireworks, and the police came and were looking for them, and then they ended up taking my uncle away. So I do like that's the only. I don't know even know why that comes to my mind, but that's like illegal. Oh, maybe I didn't have a lot of illegal examples when I was young, and that one stood out. Fireworks.
Do you want one of these candies?
It's butterscotch.
Butterscotch candy with the coffee?
Probably tastes good.
It's right next to the REM pod. If you can get close to it. Should be able to sense you.
My lungs.
My lungs? My lungs.
Was she a smoker?
Yeah, so she died of heart disease. She was a smoker. And I do remember when she had her, like she was having open heart surgery or just had it, and she was still smoking at the hospital. Like she went out for a break and smoked like shortly after.
Dangerous.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
Smoking's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, building a narrative, and they're not really giving a whole lot of context here as far as that narrative's concerned. So they're really, really reaching, only because like that's the stuff that they're getting. So they're trying to build a story off of these, what I'm going to call ridiculous words that are just basically coming up. I've explained how those apps work several times, so I'm not going to go into it for time's sake. But notice that, right? That you have all these devices, once again, way too close to each other. They're also moving their arms, you know, and with that being that close, it's going to pick up on it. So I'm sorry, but this is actually, I'm not really sorry to be completely honest, but this is all just really fake at this point. There's no other way to say it. And so the other thing that I wanted to mention really, really quickly is when you, in this particular situation, right, when you have something like candies and coffee, that is an offering. You're making an offering to a spirit, okay? And I'm going to call it what it is. You're making an offering to a demon, because they ain't talking to this Connie woman. And you'll see why I'll say that here in a little bit here. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. All right, let's continue here.
Yes, maybe it's something you didn't know back then.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody was doing it. So, Connie, I know you didn't believe in God and those stories,
The one story I do know about you is you saying to my mom, who was raised very religious, was, the Bible is just a bunch of fictional stories. Like, I know that, right? And I remember, it impacted me a lot because I had never heard anybody say anything like that before. So she's a very, sounds like a very strong-willed, very opinionated woman. Yeah, I feel like.
Yeah, you guys heard that right. She essentially said that the Bible is nothing more than just stories compiled together. No, actually, it's the most historically documented book ever in existence within the human understanding. Okay, there are so many documentations revealing the truth of Scripture that it's undeniably one of the most important doctrinal doctrines in history. Every aspect of our understanding comes from that. So even if you're not a believer, I guarantee that you're going to have to borrow from the Christian worldview in order for you to actually come up with a logical, reasonable solution to any thought that you're going to have. So again, that's important to know because they're going to say something later that just reveals even more as to what they believe in. So just keep that in mind as we continue this.
I kind of like here. I'm going to turn on this app I like. It's kind of like Spirit Box that we were doing, but it's called Necrophonic. Necrophonic. Okay. I mean, who doesn't love that open? It's kind of spooky, but it really gets the... So what does it do? It plays random noise altogether. It shouldn't be playing any full words. Okay. So it's believed that spirits are able to take those sounds and turn them into words. Okay. All right. Okay. All right, Connie. We would like to ask you some questions. When you said you had 6 kids, did you have a miscarriage? Hear me? Is there another spirit here besides just Connie? That is spooky. Imagine being in a dark place where the thing's saying demon. It is spooky. I heard that you're spooky. Spooky, yeah. You even said it's spooky. All right. If there are any spirits with us that are actually communicating, please let us know by going to yes. I heard 1, 2, and then spirits. Do you not have enough energy? So all you've been able to do is turn that candle off and on, which is amazing. Connie?
I've said this once and I will say it again, folks. I would much prefer someone to not have a name, that they're trying to quote unquote communicate with, because they quite literally beat it over your head. And this isn't even that long of a video, and they're beating it over your head. Notice how the narrative is starting to reveal itself here, because I think the mom's completely skeptical, which that is completely fair, but her daughter's also not really being reasonable here either when it comes to taking these different sounds and names and all that stuff and trying to put it together. So just wanted to throw that out there real quick.
Think of a voice. Yeah. Connie, what's your last name?
Spirit. I don't know what her last name is, so.
I knew her married one was.
Oh.
2 married names.
Can
Do I
you,
know her first one?
can you name one of your married names?
So like him on.
Go to the letter of one of your last names.
Does
You hear it?
It sounds like somebody whispering
Like a
through it.
woman.
Yeah. Does that normally happen?
No, it's different every time. Like last.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You hear it?
Mm-hmm.
You hear it?
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Why?
okay. Connie, are you able to come through and communicate with us? All right, I'm going to turn this off.
No, she's not. Because Connie, for the context of this video, it doesn't exist because we don't see it. Again, they're beating that name over your head until you actually believe what they're saying. I'll be honest, there's no way for us to believe what she's saying because she's reaching. Everything that she's doing right here, she's reaching. And when you start looking right at what's coming through, I'll be honest, like if they didn't put that stuff on the screen, and you guys know that I've addressed this in the past, they're basically, again, this goes into the metaphysics. They're trying to convince you that that's what it's saying when it's just a bunch of random noises. I don't think for a minute that device is actually saying anything that's actually concrete, because of how they work. We did a video on that a while back. Go check that out. Because again, it's not believable for me. So yeah, but I wish I could say that it doesn't get worse, but it does.
It's
A little nauseous.
hot, sweaty. Turn down the air conditioner.
No, I always feel nauseous when I do this.
Really?
That's even just normal gross hunting. I don't know if it's like nerves or I like to say I feel nauseous and then shit starts happening.
No.
So,
Get ready.
we'll see.
Or you could just be honest with yourself and actually tell people that you're lying, and that's why you get sick to your stomach. Just saying. Lydia, with her one of her conditions is celiac disease. Okay, which plays a huge part in her day-to-day life because she is nauseous a good majority of the time. She does have stomach pain a good majority of the time. So again, just be real with yourself and explain to your audience as to why you have that feeling. It's more than likely because you know deep down that you're lying to everyone. That's just the facts. So I don't see this as any concrete evidence of her saying, "Oh, well, something's about to happen." Okay, well, you could just be honest with people and say the reason why you get sick to your stomach is because you're lying to your audience. If you don't like that, well, sorry. That's the way that I'm seeing it here.
Guys, we're just going to put this over here by the candy dish. So anytime you want to grab a candy, have a drink of your coffee, and you just want to say that you enjoyed it, go ahead and you can set that off. That was good. Alright, so I just turned on the Seer, which is an AI image generator, and so it takes...
So this particular app that she's using at this point was developed by Amy Script. Really don't know much more than that. I would assume that it works the same way as any other app on your phone would when you're talking about paranormal investigation. And what they do with this and the narrative that they try to create is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, absolutely ridiculous. In so many different ways, it's just like, why? Why even say this? Why even use that? Because again, like, she's using it because she doesn't have any context. So she's just creating a false narrative to try to drive home the possible point of her contacting a loved one, which that's not what's being done here. We already know the context because I've already given it. So, again, I don't understand how this app is relevant given what they're doing, but here we go.
Takes, just like the other app, how it makes words. So it takes those words that it gets from environmental readings and then creates an image with them. Okay, it looks like a coyote. Okay. Right? So that is how you can use this, spirits. I don't know what book for. I've been doing the light over there, which you've been liking. Now we're gonna do the bell. Right. We can. Maybe you could ask her, like, is there anything she wants to say to you? Do you have a message, Connie, that you would like to pass on to your great granddaughter or even great great granddaughters? If you have something special you would like to say, please move us to yes or to no. So in our minds, we're supposed to be like thinking of her. Yeah. It's like easier to do if my eyes are closed.
Or you can actually be truthful about the situation and say that this is power of suggestion. There's nothing here, guys. Nothing. I don't know what they think they're talking to, but they're not talking to Connie. I don't think they're talking to anybody, to be completely honest. Because the way that these devices work and the way that those apps work, it's not conclusive evidence. It's just not. It's been disproved time and time and time and again by so many debunkers. One of the best debunkers that out there, you know, I don't know if he's talked about this necessarily, but Beardo Gets Scared is probably one of the best debunkers out there. Mythos Paranormal, again, another great guy that covers, you know, the apps and the different things that he's done. Did a video recently on one of his investigations, and again, just a really great way to see how proper investigation and how properly to, you know, go about paranormal. And like, this isn't it. You know, when you're trying to build a narrative, like I said, and that narrative keeps coming short, and then you change your narratives, you know, and keep changing it, and keep changing it, and keep changing it, that's not going to convince anybody. So, what's smarter? You know, being truthful and saying, hey, look, we tried this, but nothing happened? Or trying to push a narrative that you already know that you're trying to sell people on. And again, like, that's not me being disrespectful. That's me just being real with my audience. You know, you guys out there, you know, you need to know the truth of this stuff and how they're doing it. Getting a bunch of devices and putting them on the table with the Ouija board is not going to convince any person that looks at this from a theological standpoint, or a person who actually is a debunker when it comes to the devices and the whole situation. You know, obviously those categories are in the same, you know, kind of context, but the debunkers are looking at it from the paranormal side. I'm looking at it from the theological side, okay? And I'm just going to be honest, like, they're reaching here. That's all they're doing. And when you, like I said, when you see what happens next, in the next few minutes, I'm just proving more of my point here.
Are you moving it? Mm-mm. I'm just trying to, like, picture her. Tap? Like, her camera's going crazy. No, what's going on? Which I'm definitely not moving this at all because, like, my fingers are lifting up from it. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm just like trying to picture her like across the table, drinking coffee, laughing, talking. I'm trying.
Okay. So I feel like it's moved enough to yes that we could say this is yes.
Really? Really? It moved maybe an inch and a half towards yes, and you're saying, oh, well, that's close enough. Like, really? Really? That's not how this works. Just because it moves something in a general direction, that doesn't mean that it actually is what you're saying it is. That'd be like Lydia being like literally halfway down the hallway, right? And be like, oh, well, lunch is ready. Okay, how do you know lunch is ready if you're only halfway down the hallway? Don't you have to go to the kitchen? Well, yeah, but I figured I'd, try to make lunch from the hallway. That's essentially what she just did. She's like, oh, well, it moved kind of that way. It moved kind of towards that. No, it literally moved maybe a half an inch to an inch, at most an inch and a half. And that's not even remotely close to yes. Really? I digress.
Okay.
So it's like, says it takes time to like build that connection. So at first the planchett's going to move really slow, and then when we get a stronger tie to her, it should move faster.
Okay.
So you do have a message for us. You can try to send a picture of what that message has to deal with through this app. Or if you... Oh, interesting. So it's like a family tree and then a family.
You see a family tree.
All right, guys,
like
watch what she does here.
Okay.
Right? And so you think of it like a family tree, like more abstract.
Mm-hmm.
And then this would be probably Connie.
We don't speak in abstracts. How on earth did you come up with the fact that that's a family tree? That makes absolutely no sense. You can see in the mother's face how she's not buying it entirely. This is just foolishness. I mean, and like when Lydia and I were talking about this particular episode, she's like, that looks like a really familiar painting to me. And I was like, yeah, I feel like we've seen it somewhere. This, again, like, this is just regurgitating information. Like, this isn't, yeah, I'm going to stop there. Just keep playing it.
And then this is like the family, right? So she has a message for her great-granddaughters.
Or granddaughter.
Your ring, are you happy that stayed in the family?
All right, get ready for this one, guys. Get ready for this.
No. What do you see?
Like a burning letter or something.
Or a mirror.
Or a mirror.
But something's like on fire.
Something's burning.
Or it's a melting marshmallow. I mean, that was one of the things that Lydia said when we watched this together. I don't see how that's relevant. In fact, like, it's laughable. Because you're like looking at this image and you're trying to convince yourself that this is something that's relevant. That image is not relevant, but they try to build a story off of it. I can't even make this up, guys. They literally tried to build a story off of an image of basically glass melting. If you guys have ever seen a glass blower, this is essentially what happens.
It's not a glass blower, it's a marshmallow.
If you guys didn't hear Lydia off in the background there, she said it's not glass, it's a marshmallow. She's like adamant that it's a marshmallow. But I digress. I think that's just idiotic, in my opinion. That you're trying to do an image that you're saying is from the other side. You're trying to say that this image is from something or someone that is trying to, I can't even break it down. I mean, that image just does not make any sense, but whatever.
No.
I don't know what this is.
No.
No.
No, we don't.
No.
But yes and no. I
Alright,
don't know. Very
Alright. Do you want to try to tell us on the board? That's weird. Maybe you could try to make the picture again.
flames, like something burning.
Like that your items are passed down and that they're cared for with love. That's gotta be nice, right?
Again, false narrative.
Would you do it? Mm-mm.
Okay, they had to actually increase the speed of this to even try to make it relevant.
Was that a knock?
No, pray.
All right, I want to point something out. Did you guys see the daughter's fingers move, like as if she was pushing it? Did you guys see that? I saw that. We have a saying in the South, especially in Tennessee, bless their little heart.
Didn't make me suspicious, so it was probably nothing. Should I close my eyes so I get picture? Because I feel like I'll get it.
I feel like that really helped. Okay, we have tea.
Can we take it off? No. I'm gonna break.
We could sit it with it like on our lap so it's lower and doesn't hurt as much. It actually glides around easier and it's the way it's supposed.
I, for one, have never heard this before. That how a Ouija board is supposed to be used on a lap. Never heard that before. I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's false. I've just never heard that before. And generally speaking, when you're talking about historical aspects of conjuring something, because that's essentially what this is, it's a conjuring board. Generally, back in the day, at the turn of the century, and even as far as back as the late 1700s, you would use a table, and that table would be called a conjuring table. Like, I don't know where she got this from. Again, it's pretty much laughable to me.
Supposed to be used. Like we're supposed to sit like knee to knee. Alright, we got all kinds of things set up so we can detect you. I wanted to try this with somebody.
It's very nasty here.
Alright, pay attention, y'all.
Well, then I don't want to die. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm talking about the afterlife. Is that why you showed us flames? You're like, wait, that shit is real. I take it back. Yeah, like, it's a fictional story. That's what I was kind of thinking when there was the flame.
How is this a laughable situation? Explain to me. Explain to me how hell is laughable. Okay? Here's something that most occultists believe versus the actual truth of the matter. Alright? So depending on what sect of occultism you're in, you view hell in several different ways. In the context of her and her mother, hell is not a bad place. It's not. It's nothingness, right? Like that's generally how most occultists actually view hell. Is they see it as a wonderful place to where it's you're free of everything. It's just a nothingness. No, it's not. Hell, okay, is the full wrath and judgment of God, people. This is not a joking or laughing matter. Do you understand? This is not funny that a person who is not a believer in Christ, who has no salvation, who has no redemption, that cannot use Christ as the propitiation for their sins, why is it a laughable matter? It makes no sense to laugh about something so serious. Shame on you guys, and you need to repent from this immediately. This is not the proper way to view this at all, whatsoever. Even when I was an occultist, guys, I never, ever laughed in any capacity about heaven or hell. It's always been a very serious issue for me personally, and I think most believers would actually agree that this is something that is not to be joked about. My heart hurts for these two ladies. And I hope that you find God in the proper manner through Christ. I really hope by the power of the Holy Spirit convicting you of your sins, that it brings about a change in your understanding, because this is just sick. I'm going to say it. It's just sick.
Flames and nothing. I'm like, you know what I mean? All right, let's do it. Okay, Connie. This should be easier for you to communicate with us.
Are we waiting for her to spell words? Or we are...
Just let us know that you're here right now, right? Because I don't know. It kind of feels like it, but it feels very weak, the connection, right? Because it's very sparse.
Oh, the first time you actually say the proper narrative. Did you all catch this? She said that she doesn't know if she's actually talking to Connie or anything for that matter. You could have spent the last 16, 17 minutes just saying that. Instead, you want to lead people on and say that, we could be potentially, maybe, talking to a loved one or something else. Just one, call it what it is, and two, just be honest with people. It's not hard. It's not. But you guys make it so hard. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Fallen.
Like fucking hell. It's nasty here. They're not falling.
The angels fallen.
They're not even
heaven.
falling down.
Right, they fell out of heaven. Oh, no. Fuck that. Give us something else. We want something more positive on here.
I don't believe Connie's in hell.
No.
Even if you tell me you're Satan, I'm not going to believe it.
And there you have it. They don't believe in hell. So, if you don't believe in hell, that means that you, by proxy, can't believe in heaven, right? Because, that would be proper context. That would be proper within your actual understanding of your own theology. But here we're laughing about it. We're saying, ha 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 ha. I don't think that she's in hell, and I don't think that, anything other than what I think. Do you guys understand, how stupid this is within within theology? This is just downright complete foolishness. Proverbs 26 verses 4 and 5 says, "Do not answer a fool by their folly." But then the very next verse it says, "Answer them by their folly." Okay, so in other words, what does that mean? It's kind of like, instead of, let's say we're at the circus or, somewhere that has a clown, right? There's two different ways to approach this. So, the foolishness aspect would just be like, hey, you're a clown. But, with presuppositional apologetics, you're not just going to say, hey, you're a clown. You're going to get a mirror and say, hey, come with me, look at this mirror. You are a clown. So that person has to look into the mirror to verify that they are what they are. This is just foolishness. I don't understand the idiocracy of this and why it's so funny. So at that point, do you even believe in the afterlife? Because that's what your video is the afterlife secrets unveiled. There's no secrets that are being unveiled here. God does not keep any secrets from his believers, okay? He doesn't. God does not change. There is nothing new under the sun. Scripture says that. So why are you trying to say that there's a hidden knowledge when there's not? You don't believe it. You just said it. So why do it then? If you don't believe it, then why do it? You have to be real with yourself, guys. When you start doing this stuff, it's mind-blowing for me. I digress.
Yeah. Don't say that. But I don't believe it either. I don't believe
Yeah,
that thing, but yeah. Heaven. No, it's saying heaven.
Heaven.
What the fuck? Why are we talking about God? Like,
Well, because I brought up that story that you told me.
you're right.
And this app, if you say anything, those apps actually, they basically record it within their database. So that's how this stuff works these days. So, like, I'll give you an example, right? So Lydia and I were talking about something a couple of days ago, and I forget what it was offhand, but 5 minutes later, I'm watching a YouTube channel, one that I actually enjoy, and lo and behold, a commercial comes up from it. That's how this works. That's how your phone works. I don't know.
And then she showed fire. And then it says nasty here. And then it said falling. And now it says,
I'm stroking your hair.
is that something she would have done?
Oh, I don't know, but
You felt that?
I have goosebumps. You know what I mean? Like, that's so strange. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
goosebumps.
You see, I'm not, and so she must be doing it to you.
Just like a
Honey, thank you. Do you miss Michelle?
It's a weird thing for it to say, right?
That's stroking your hair? Yeah, usually, like, that's very endearing.
Yeah.
Very loving.
Yeah.
Like, usually it's like, I'm touching you, I'm behind you.
Or it's completely made up. That doesn't prove anything, guys. Just because you get something across the screen that says, I'm behind you stroking your hair. Okay, why? I mean, do you guys understand this? That, like, I'm baffled by even what to say when they say things like this. And now, you're seeing the narrative change again. One narrative after another narrative after never. Just be real about it and be like, look, guys, hey, we tried it and it didn't work. Okay, that's fine. Don't lie to your audience. Don't lie to the people that are investing time and money into what you're doing by lying to them. It's so ridiculous on so many levels.
And it's like usually something a little more malevolent sounding, but that sounds very like something your grandmother would do. Alright, so because this went to this side of the board, I'm going to say that you were saying yes.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go ahead and move it back to center. Did you have a nickname?
Okay, so you're just going to assume that it's yes again. That's not how this works. That's not how this works.
For Michelle?
Some.
Did she have some names for you? Like, did she call you lots of things?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Like, Simone Pepperoni.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I don't remember that.
Do you want
That was
to
like 40 years ago,
Do you want to remind us of one of the names? Maybe you can spell it out. Maybe Shelly.
Mm-mm.
Mobelli.
That's things like names we would come up with.
Well, yeah.
Woman, no woman.
Get over here, woman.
Get over here. I don't remember nicknames. Like, at all.
It looks like she's trying to spell something. R. Did you call her Renee? Like her middle name?
Maybe both of my names, like Michelle Renee.
How many times are we going to change the narrative within a 20-minute video or a 30-minute video?
Lots of times.
I mean, they're changing it again. They're trying to say, "Oh well, do you know, a nickname?" Why is that relevant? Why is that relevant? You can see the mother's disbelief at this point. Okay, like, I want to make that clear. Like, if you look into her eyes and you look into her face, she's not believing a stinking second of this. So again, like, why are you trying to sell so hard on a narrative when you simply could have just said, You know what? We tried it and it didn't work. But no, that's too easy. That's too easy to be honest to everyone. What you have to do is continue to make narratives until you beat it over their head enough that a person's like just submits and says, "Oh yeah, I believe what you're saying." That's not a way to handle business. That's not a way to be represented of your side at all. So again, like it's getting ridiculous at this point for me.
But not like a nickname that I can think of. Or
Cue the spooky metaphysic.
Healing.
you feel like you lived your life.
That's what all these guys do is they try to find spooky music to try to drive a point home. Why? I mean, like, so in the Christian world, this happens in churches, believe it or not. And in these churches, these specific churches, okay, they're what's called a bullpup. And I'm not going to mention any names. If you guys understand what I'm saying, and you know the churches, then you know what I'm referring to. But you always have that guy or that lady in the front, right? And they're like, "Yeah, oh yeah, that was great, that was good," and it was nothing. That's essentially kind of what's happening here. So these ladies are wolves. I hate to break it to people, but they're wolves. They're trying to sell you on a false narrative. That's just at this point why. You didn't have anything in the beginning of the video. You don't have anything now. So why to go to the extreme of what you're doing to try to sell us on a narrative that really is nothing? It's nothing. Again, like, I'm just trying to paint the picture clear here, because they're not being honest. They're not being honest with themselves. They're not being honest with, the people that are supporting them. Because I'll be honest, without support, without people behind you, both on and off the camera, this is just downright foolishness. You're quite literally lying to your audience and trying to make something out of nothing. That's not okay in any aspect. And that's how this happens within, the evangelical churches today, is that they're more motivational speakers than what they are preachers most of the time. And they're gonna have music back behind them. I'm just gonna mention his name. I'm not going to talk about his church. I'm not going to talk about anything other than this, what I'm trying to refer to here, especially with the music. Okay, the pastor that I'm referring to, if you want to call him a pastor, is Stephen Furtick. Okay, Stephen Furtick always has a piano player or a keyboardist on stage while he's preaching. And so when he gets fired up, right, and the vein starts bulging out in his neck and he starts screaming at people, why, I don't know, because that's not how the gospel is supposed to be preached. Not that he actually preaches the gospel. But he always has somebody behind him, playing the keyboards, and they start doing their little finger dancing, when he gets worked up. They're doing the same thing. It's power of suggestion. That's all they're doing here. There's nothing here, guys. Nothing.
Life to the fullest.
Shadow.
It's really weird. I was going to ask her if the spirit world is dangerous.
Really? You're going to ask the spirit world if it's dangerous? Are you really that naive?
Just moving a lot of I can know it's moving. It's moving more than it was. It's moving to no, and so I'm thinking the no, so she did not live her life to the fullest.
Well, she died at 54 or 56.
So there's still more that you wanted to do.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have any regrets about your life?
She moved back to center.
Talking.
Okay. No, I think like she was good at talking. She was good at making you feel like you were important sitting.
You mean just like you ladies are doing? Like, what kind of a response is that? Like, why would you even ask that question, one? And two, what kind of a response is that? She was good at talking. Okay, well, I'm a content creator, and you know, some things are moving in some really interesting directions in my life right now. And talking is part of being, you know, a content creator. Like, you have to have a voice to be a content creator most of the time. Now, you can do it without doing that, but I think people enjoy hearing people talk to a certain extent. So, huh? I mean, I just, whatever. Like I said, we're about done with this, guys, and you know, I'll give my final thoughts here. So we got about 8 minutes left. So I'm just gonna go ahead and play the rest of the 8 minutes, and we'll discuss things at the end here.
I think I told you that before. Sitting at the table, pouring everybody iced tea, and telling you all the neighborhood gossip. Like, she was good at that.
So would that be something she misses, not necessarily regrets?
Right, miss it.
So,
but talking, maybe she
said something, or she didn't say something.
Right.
Okay, can you ring the bell?
I can see you all.
That's amazing. Can you ring the bell if you have regrets about something that you said? Not the cat. Don't ring the cat.
One lady here.
Lady here.
That would be her. That's who we invited.
Yeah.
Usually I don't invite anybody and it's a little crazier.
Would you ask her to ring the bell for? Did she have regrets?
Regrets talking, but is that like saying like, yeah, usually it is a little crazier?
Yeah.
You know, like
maybe that's a ring, yeah.
Do you miss talking? You can move us to yes or no. You can ring the bell if it's you miss talking. Maybe you feel like you didn't talk enough.
I think she
If you're trying to spell something, ring the bell. And if you're going to know, go ahead and turn that candle on. I'll give you a minute. Just trying to spell something.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Whoever just said W. Are you trying to spell wonderful?
Maybe going to M.
That's weird.
I'm going to put my ring down the whole glass. I love your taste in jewelry, by the way.
Those are nice. I'm just like, I'm trying to picture her.
Yeah, that's really good. Would you like to sit down and have some coffee?
They can talk about the neighbors and everything going on. All the neighborhood gossip.
We have enough personal gossip to fill a whole evening. Do you hang around here on this plane when we're not talking to you? Or where do you go? It's probably too hard to answer, but I don't know.
Like, where are you?
Mirror.
No. Burning mirror.
That's what I thought it was at
That's
first.
what you thought. I kind of thought it was like a mirror too. I was like, no, it's probably a piece of paper burning because the edges look like the leaves.
I am covered.
And once again, they changed the narrative. They go back to the last image that they saw, which apparently it was glass or a marshmallow, or honestly, God only knows exactly what it was. But they're trying to make something out of nothing here because, well, they have a nothing burger. It's sad at this point, you know. Like, I don't have even much to say at this point. That's how sad this is for me. For them to try to make something out of nothing, like, it takes so much more effort, okay, to try to sell somebody on something. or try to say this or that. You know what I mean? Like, it's so easy to just be truthful and be honest, but it takes so much more work to do what they're doing. And honestly, this isn't good for anybody. To not be truthful with yourself and be truthful with the people that you are investing in you. One thing that Lydia and I are learning about doing different social media projects is without the support and without people investing in you, you have nothing. You have nothing. Luckily, we have some really strong people behind us that are helping us, that are believing in us, that are, they pray for us constantly, not just for our physical health, which is obviously, something that Lydia and I don't ask for, is physical health at this point. But without those people and being truthful to those people that are supporting you, you're doing a great deal of misleading people. And again, like, that's all this is. They're just misleading people, trying to connect dots where there was never a dot to begin with. We only got a couple of minutes left, and I'll come back with the rest of it.
Angels. So, like, the mirror is like a spirit world, is kind of what she's saying. Like, she's in the mirror. That's like a belief.
And what?
Yes, but no.
Yeah. Like my whole body.
Well, that is weird that does go with that picture.
It goes with that picture, and it's also a...
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you for talking.
Maybe you can talk to us again sometime. Probably like hard for her to come through.
I miss her. It's weird because I'm closing my eyes and I'm trying to hear her voice, but I would say, like, I don't know, maybe like 5 years ago, I can't hear her voice anymore in my head. And I used to be able to hear her say Francisquito because she lived like near Francisquito, the street. And it was just, and so I was trying to hear her voice in my head, to kind of help. But I can't hear it anymore. I wish I could.
And this didn't help you hear it?
No.
Because that would be interesting.
No, I couldn't. But that mirror thing was very interesting, like the picture. And why would it say mirror? And why would that other thing?
No, that's
picture, like those.
And it fit with what I was asking.
Yeah. And this was on quite a bit, and then it didn't come on anymore.
I thought we could end on that. That was really nice.
Okay.
Interesting.
Well, was interesting.
All right, folks, there you have it. It's just a shame, They're trying to put so many things together here that they don't go together. They openly admitted that they don't really believe in heaven or hell. They openly admitted to a lot of things that are extremely important when you're trying to actually get people behind you. So my question to you ladies is this: why are you doing what you're doing if you don't even believe in hell or heaven, for that matter? Because again, consistency is key within a worldview. So my first question is why are you being inconsistent within your reality? That's my first question. And my second question is if you don't believe in anything, why are you doing it? Part of the reason as to why I do these videos, part of the reason why we have a podcast is because I truly believe what I'm trying to say and what I've been taught. And that's probably the most important thing in being a content creator, is being true to yourself and being true to your values and what you believe in. Because again, like, there's people that are scrutinized for what they believe in, mainly Christians, because America is not a sovereign nation. Just because we have a nation under God, okay, well, here's the problem with that. There was only two different types of people at the time when the Constitution was written. One was Protestant, true biblical Presbyterians. At the time, Presbyterianism was bigger than what Baptist was, which is, it's not to say that that Baptist theology wasn't around. That's not the case whatsoever. It's the fact that the church at the time was Presbyterian, and there's only one thing, really two things that I would say Reformed Baptists like myself would disagree with when it came to the theology of the Presbyterian Church. And it's not a main argument, really. Though Baptists like to think it is. So again, like that's my question here. Why do it if you don't believe it? I can understand if you're like trying to debunk stuff and trying to show people, hey, like this is fake and this is why. But looking at it from a theological perspective, right? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't honestly make any sense as to why you would take so much effort to create false narrative after false narrative after false narrative to try to drive home, that you're speaking to someone that is a familiar spirit. And it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't. Like, on that note, I think I'm gonna end this particular video, just because like my brain hurts, guys. This is really, really challenging, I would say, to even try to wrap your head around that you're making videos and you're making claims, but you don't truly believe it. Like, why? Why would you go publicly and say something like that? Keep in mind, YouTube is a public place. Okay. Sorry if you guys are hearing that noise. Lydia's blowing her nose over there. Our office, for those of you that are curious as to why like Lydia's always in the room, she's actually on the other side of the room. So we have like split desks. So she has like her own cubicle, and I have mine. So you're gonna obviously hear her in the background sometimes. So that's what that was. She kind of is like looking at me and kind of smirking.
I'm sorry.
And no, you're fine, dear. You're fine. She feels bad about it, but there's no reason to. So yeah, I think I'm going to end the video on this note. Guys, understand that theology and philosophy, they do go hand in hand. Obviously, I would say your theology determines your philosophy. It's not the other way around. So understand that's extremely important to understand your own theology. Okay, your believing your own belief system is actually part of what you have to do. Especially if you're a content creator that does these types of things, and then you publicly say on a public platform, "Well, I don't really believe this," and then a person like myself comes along and asks you, "Why do it then?" And most of the time, you're not going to get a response because of the inconsistency within their belief system. They have nothing structurally to stand on when it comes to doctrine and theology. So I'm just going to end it with that. Guys, I hope you appreciate and like these reaction videos that we're doing. This is actually the second time that I've done this particular video. First time, I made a mistake. I thought I could do something, and I really couldn't salvage it. Lydia was actually in that one. She chose to sit out this time, which is fine. But yeah, so with all that said, please like, share, and subscribe. One of the things that's beautiful about subscribing to our channel, right, is it's absolutely free. It's no work on your end, okay? And that helps us grow. That helps us to keep making these videos, but also to trying to share the truth. The more people that view these videos, the more people that understand. Look, I know my voice can sound like I'm getting aggressive, but it's just because I'm so confused, and that's the problem with a lot of the videos that we've done when it comes to reaction videos, is we don't even know what to say half the time because they're so off in left field, and this one is no different. So if you'd like to see more of this, please like and share, and please subscribe to our channel. And we will see you guys in the next one. Check you later.